We've been actually, today we're going to wrap up this teaching that we've done called Being Rich. And before we actually get into it, I do want to tell you about this next series that we're going to do. We're going to start next week a series called Who is Jesus? And it is, we're going to spend, starting next week, we're going to go all the way into Christmas, asking and answering this question, who is Jesus? Because quite frankly, that is who our faith is built around. Like our whole faith is not placed in it's not a set of ideas. We don't place our faith even in this. This is not our God. Jesus is our God. A person is our God. We read his story here, but he is our God. Our faith is placed in Jesus. And so it's really important that as Christians we begin to explore and answer this question about Jesus. Who is he? And how does he change our life? Like what happens to us when we actually line up behind him and follow him? One of the things we'll talk about in this coming series is that Jesus talks a lot about this kingdom. He talks, if you've read through the Gospels at all, you'll realize he talks a lot about kingdom. And basically what he's doing there is inviting us into a whole new way of thinking, a whole new way of living. He says, look, there's the kingdom of the world, and then there's the kingdom of God. And in my kingdom, we think different, we act different, we function different, we work different, we just do life differently. And this invitation is to all of us at any time to become a part of the kingdom of God and embrace the person of Jesus in our lives. Embrace him as a leader. So I'm actually excited about that series. I think it's going to be a good one. But we've been processing this idea of being rich. We want to do it. We want to do it well. And so one of the things the Bible says in Deuteronomy chapter 6, it says, parents, Moses is talking to the nation of Israel. He said, I want you to teach your kids about God. He said, I want you to teach them when you're sitting at the dining room table, when you're tucking them into bed, when you're walking through the day, when you're traveling. I want you to teach them the things of God. So Sherry and I have actually tried to do that. And one of the ways we do that is oftentimes when we're traveling, it's just a kind of a cool way just to talk with our kids. And so we've been talking with our kids about being rich. And if you've been here for this series, one of the things you've realized is that we are rich. We're going to look a little bit, in just a little bit, at some of the things that St. Paul told us to do. He said, to those of you who are rich in this world, and if we look at all of the income earners throughout the world, we in America would have to say we are blessed ridiculously over the top. We are rich. Compared to the world, we are rich. And that's one of the things we've been learning over the last several weeks. But this week, I was on a date with my kindergartner, Riley, and we were processing this idea of being rich. And she said something that was awesome. And of course, the best stuff happens when it's unscripted. And the best stuff happens when you don't have your phone. So I suddenly got my phone ready really quick, and I was like, hey, bud, tell me again what it means to be rich. And I actually caught it on video, and so I wanted you to see what a 5-year-old thinks is rich, all right? You ready? So we're going to kill the lights. So, Riley, can you tell me who's rich?
People that have $100.
People that have $100. What does it mean to be rich?
It means you have a lot of money.
Gotta be a lot of money, right? Do you think you're rich?
Nope.
Nope. What does it mean to be poor?
Have no money.
Have no money. Right. Are you poor?
Nope.
Nope. So you're not rich or you're not poor. So what are you?
I'm just middle size.
You're just the middle size?
Yeah.
All right.
That means both.
That means you have a little bit of both. All right. So to Riley, being rich is having $100. That's kind of a cool way to look at it. I'm rich if I have $100. And but you know the truth is there are lots of places in the world where $100 would actually be considered rich, right? So what we've been doing is we've been working through a letter that St. Paul wrote to a young pastor, Timothy, and this is what he said to him in 1 Timothy chapter 6. He said, teach those who are rich in this world. And that's what we talked about week 1. People who are rich in this world. One of the things we did is we went to globalrichlist.com. You can type in your income and you can see where you're at compared to the rest of the income earners in the world. And one of the things we realized is that $33,000 a year, if that's your annual income, that puts you in the top 1% of income earners in the world. And so anytime when we read through the Bible and we hear stories or we hear teaching directed towards the rich, we automatically then assume that's us. That's us. In this world, we are definitely considered rich. So Paul said, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money. That's what we talked about week 2. money promises things that only God can provide. It promises happiness, it promises safety, it promises peace, but ultimately it can't provide it, St. Paul said, because it's so unreliable. You may have a lot of money one day, and then as we learned just about 10 years ago, it can all be gone in just a heartbeat. It can all be gone. So Paul said, look, don't be proud, don't put your trust in your money because it's unreliable. He said, instead, your trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. One of the things we've been talking about throughout this series is that there is absolutely nothing wrong with having money, with having lots of it. In fact, we've seen this over and over throughout the Scriptures. God gives it to us, and one of the reasons He does is for our enjoyment. So there's a move on right now to disparage and besmirch people who have money. And I'll just be honest with you, it's unbiblical. It's not a Christian view of money. Having money is not a bad thing. In fact, some of the people that God used most significantly throughout Scripture were often some very wealthy people. One of the reasons that God gives us money is so that we can enjoy it, and as believers we should do that, and we should not feel bad about it. But there's a second reason then that God gives us, and Paul says this. He says, look, tell them to use their money to do good. And that's what we talked about in week 3, being generous. We enjoy our money, but we're also generous. Christians are generous with it. We use the things that God has given us to help our world, to help other people. He says they should also be rich in good works, and that's what we talked about last week. And they should be generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. And here's where we're going to go this week. By doing this, if we will do this, we will be storing up treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they may experience true life. Now it's interesting because when Paul talks about true life, it almost sounds like there might be something other than true life, which might be a fake life, a false life, a life that's not real. And so I just finished reading a book called The Thin Green Line. It's written by Paul Sullivan, and he writes a finance column in the New York Times. And the subtitle, The Thin Green Line, The Money Secrets of the Super Wealthy. All right? And I wanted to read you something that he wrote in this book. He said, what people with a lot of money, whether earned, inherited, or filched, what they have is more financial freedom than people with less money. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? All right. But financial freedom is not the same as happiness or contentment or generosity or even freedom itself. In other words, you can have a lot of money and not have true life. It's possible to have the best, the biggest income and all that can provide for us, lots and lots and lots of savings, lots and lots of financial reserve, lots and lots of toys, and still not have true life. And that's really what we're all about. And that is what being rich in the things that matter, that's what that's about. So most Fridays, Sherry and I have what we call our coin and our calendar meeting. And during this time, we balance the checkbook, we pay our bills, we review our budget, we manage our calendar, we make sure that our plan is going the way that we hope that it will go, the way that we're working it to go. And it's always insightful when we sit down at the table to do our coin and calendar meeting. It's always insightful the things that we actually see. Because when we sit down and we actually talk about our coin and our calendar, we see the truth. We see what really is true in our lives. So for instance, we say we want to be debt-free. This is something that my family has embraced fully. We've embraced the idea that debt is not a good thing. Scriptures teach us that. Experience teaches us that. So we've embraced the idea that we want to be debt-free. And so that's what we say. But when we sit down and we do our coin and calendar, we see that we like to eat out. And I'm going to tell you something. Eating out with a family of 8 complicates the debt-free thing. So we say we want to be debt-free, but when we sit down and we do our coin and calendar, we see that we like to eat out. We say that our kids are a priority. That's what we say. And when we sit down and we do our coin and calendar, what we see is that we actually do pretty good with dating our kids. So that's true, right? So we say they're a priority, and we see that we're actually doing that. So that feels pretty good. We say that we want to make space in our life for Sabbath. God teaches us in the Ten Commandments. One of the things He says is, You have to take a day of rest. You have to take a day where you worship God, where you enjoy the richness of relationship. You have to do that. We say that's important. And the cool thing is, we're actually seeing that since that Making Space series we did a couple months ago, that was convicting for us. Like, we realized we have to make space in our life for Sabbath. And what we're seeing when we look at our calendars, we're actually starting to do pretty good at that. So it's cool. Sometimes when you sit down and do coin and calendar, you say something, you see something else. And sometimes you look at your coin and calendar and you say, this is what we say. And you know what? We see that we're actually doing it, so it feels kind of good. And here's what we've realized, and this is in your notes. Our character is revealed in our coin and calendar. Coin and calendar lets us see if what we say is really happening. Like, you can say, I'm all about helping people. But when you do your coin and calendar meeting, what does it really say? You can say that I definitely want to grow spiritually, but when you do your coin and calendar meeting, what does that really say? You can say, I want to get in better shape physically. But when you do your coin and calendar meeting, what does it really say? Right? Coin and calendar, and I mean, you've heard this before. People say, look, if you want to know someone's priorities, if you want to know what's important to them, show me their checkbook and calendar, or internet browser. That's a good one too, right? So the truth is, listen, who you really are and what you really value, what's really, really important to you, will show up when you look at coin and calendar meetings, all right? And the truth is this. If every one of us sat down and did a serious coin and calendar inventory, a lot of us would realize that what we say and what we see are not exactly aligned. Probably all of us at some point in our life would have some point at which we would say, I say I want to do these things, but I see that I'm not actually doing them. I'm not giving time to them. I'm not giving resources to doing what I say. Does that make sense? All right. So, Jesus was having a conversation with a man. So this guy was in the middle of a family argument. Their father had passed away, and they were dividing up the land. They were splitting the inheritance, and there was some disagreement in the family. And they came to Jesus and said, Jesus, look, you're a wise man. You're a great teacher. Would you help us figure out this? Our family's falling apart. We're all angry with each other. Would you give us some insight as to how to do this? And in Luke chapter 12, I want to read you the story that Jesus told them. Before he told them the story, he said to them, look, life is not measured by how much you own. You can have a lot of stuff and have a bad life. You can have a lot of money and have a bad life. You can have a really cool car and have a bad life. You can have the latest in technology and have a bad life. Now, that's not to say that you can't have a lot of stuff and have a great life. There's lots and lots of instances in which that's true. But Jesus said true life is not measured by how much you own. And then he said this. Let me tell you this story. Luke chapter 12, beginning in verse 16. Jesus said there was a rich man who had a fertile farm, and it was producing lots and lots of crops. So this guy, his farm was doing really well, his business doing really, really well. And so he said to himself, man, what should I do? Like, I don't even have room. The barns where I'm storing all these crops, they're not big enough. My business is going so well, I don't even have room to store all this stuff. I've got to build new barns. That's what he said. I'm going to tear down my barns. I'm going to build bigger ones to hold all my stuff. Then I'll have enough room to store all this stuff that I'm creating, all these resources that I have. I'll have enough room to store it all. And then he said this, here's what I'm going to do. When I've got all this wealth, when I've got all these resources saved, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. So this guy basically said, look, I look around, I see I've got lots of money, I've got lots of savings, I've got lots of toys, I've got, financially, I'm secure, I'm set. Now I'm just going to kick back. I'm going to buy an island. I'm going to drink nice fruity drinks. I'm going to wear cool shoes. And I'm going to have a good time the rest of my life. But then Jesus said this is what happened. God said to him, you fool, tonight you die. Then who gets everything you've worked for? That's an incredible question. I mean, here's this guy. He's got all this money. He's got all this stuff. He's got all these cars. He's got all these toys, all these big houses. And God says, tonight you die. Then who gets it all? You don't. Then Jesus said this, which is absolutely critical to what we want to talk about today. He said, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. A person is a fool to store up all of this earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. And so I would just simply say to you, I think it's possible to have a false life in which you've got all kinds of riches on the outside, but on the inside you're broke. I think the scriptures will teach us that a true life is one where you're rich on the inside and very possibly on the outside as well. But true riches start on the inside. Because at that point, no matter what happens to you, even if you lose it all, there's still something on the inside. We know lots of people, we've heard the stories at least, of people who had all kinds of resources and wealth and big accounts, and they lost it, but then there was nothing on the inside, and so what did they do? Those are the people that jump out of big buildings. Those are the people that turn to alcohol. Those are the people that turn to drugs, because there's nothing on the inside. Jesus said, look, the truly wealthy person is one who has riches with God on the inside, and then whatever happens on the outside, they can handle that. So I would just throw out a couple questions, and that would be this. When you look at your life, would you say that you have a rich relationship with God? Do you have something on the inside? Do you have a connection with God on the inside that's nurtured through prayer, that's nurtured through worship, that's nurtured through relationship? Do you have an encounter with God on the inside that gives you the wisdom and the courage and the strength and the compassion to live well Monday through Sunday?
Yes.
That's the key here. A rich relationship with God. Do you have that? Here's another question. Would God say the same thing about you? Would He say, I have a rich relationship with this person? I see them often. I hear from them often. Or would He say, you know, the only time I see them is when they need something. The only time I ever hear from them is when they're in trouble. The only time they ever say my name is when they're driving in Charlotte traffic, you know? What kind of a relationship do you have with God? Would you say that you're rich from Him? When's the last time you talked with God? When's the last time you heard from God? When's the last time you talked about God with a friend? When's the last time you did something for Him? When's the last time you received something from Him? And so what I want to do this morning is I just want to show you 3 ways that we can be rich in our relationship with God. Because at the end of the day, Jesus says, again, let's read this together. He says, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. That's mission critical. So let me show you 3 ways from the scripture to have a rich relationship with God. Way number 1 is to be rich in faith. So we talked about this last week. We said, look, the only way that we can ever have a connection with God, the only way we ever have a relationship with God is by trusting Him, is by placing our faith in Him. We can never do enough good. In fact, the Bible says this, we're not saved by our good works at all, ever. But we are saved to do good works. And we talked about that. In Hebrews chapter 11:6, it says, it is impossible to please God without faith. You cannot have a relationship with God if you don't trust Him, if you don't have faith in Him. It says, anyone who wants to come to Him must believe that He exists and that He reward those who sincerely seek Him. In other words, God says, I have something for you. If you will believe that I'm here, and you will genuinely seek me, you will genuinely pray to me, you will genuinely seek to know my heart for your life, I will reward you. I will give you relationship. I will pour out blessing on you. You will be rich in relationship with me. So some time ago, I was reading through the biographies of Jesus. These are called the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were colleagues of Jesus, and they wrote his story. We have them in our Bibles. And I was reading through them, and I was struck by something as I was reading. I saw that there's only 2 times in all of his biography where Jesus was amazed. Like, there's only 2 times in all of those writings where Jesus had a wow moment. So, the first was written by Mark. Jesus was going around, he was doing all kinds of good things, he was performing miracles. People's lives were being radically changed. It was incredible stuff that was going on. And Mark said, in spite of all that, the people around him refused to believe in him. They refused to believe that he was, in fact, the Son of God. They refused to believe that Jesus was who he said he was. And Mark said, in Mark chapter 6, it said, Jesus was amazed at their unbelief. Like he looked around these people and said, you see me doing all this stuff, and you still don't believe me? Wow. Wow. So one of the things that's true about us is it is possible to amaze Jesus with our lack of faith. It is possible to raise his eyebrows because we don't trust him enough. The second time that we see Jesus being amazed was recorded by Luke. Luke told the story of a Roman military officer who had a servant that he loved very much, and the servant was also a very valuable member in his household. This particular servant was sick, and he was prepared, he was ready to die. It actually looked like he was going to die. And so this Roman military officer sent a message to Jesus and said, listen, if there's any way that you could heal this servant of mine, that would be amazing. That would be awesome. And so Jesus said, well, I can do that. So he started to go towards the house. He started to take a trip towards this Roman officer's house. The Roman officer heard he was coming, so he sent a message and said, look, you're a really great guy. You're probably too good to come into my house. You don't even need to come into my house. In fact, I believe that if you just say, be healed, wherever you are out there, if you just say it, my servant will be better. When Jesus heard that, this is what he said. In Luke chapter 7, he was amazed and said, I haven't seen this kind of faith in all of Israel. He was amazed. And so what we need to know is that while it's possible to raise Jesus' eyebrows in like a wow moment because of our lack of faith, it's also possible to give Jesus a sense of wow because of our incredible amount of faith. In fact, you'll see this in your notes. The state of our faith is the only thing that can amaze Jesus. Some of us actually have so little faith that Jesus looks at us and says, wow. In spite of all that you've heard about, in spite of all the things you've seen me do, and friends and family, and even in your own life, listen, there are some people in here who are struggling to trust Jesus for whatever it is you're facing now. And Jesus essentially looks at you and says, are you kidding me? Look back over the course of your life and look what I've done. And you still don't trust me? Wow, that's amazing. And then there are other people in this room, undoubtedly, who your faith is so big, you're moving out so strong, you trust Jesus so much that you do things that are almost on the borderline of insanity. Jesus looks at you and says, that's amazing. The state of our faith is really the only thing that will ever amaze Jesus. So let me just ask you this. When was the last time you said you trusted God and acted like it? See, it's one thing to come in here in this safe environment, surrounded by people who are all dressed up in their Sunday best. We all smell nice. We all look nice. We're all prepared to present ourselves to one another this morning. We look good. I mean, we're all happy, right? We drove our car in. We probably had breakfast. It's a relatively safe place this morning. It's one thing to raise our hands in this environment and say, I trust you, Jesus. But what happens when you go out of here and start living tomorrow? Do we act like we really, genuinely trust him? When's the last time we did that? See, if you're not rich in faith, you may be rich in this world. You may have a little money set back in the savings account. But if you're not rich in faith, you're not really experiencing the true life that the Scriptures call us out to. Number one way to be rich towards God is to have faith, to trust him, to listen to him, to do the things that he calls us to do, to live out the life that he calls us to live out. A second way then to be rich towards God is to be rich in good works. Again, we talked about this a little bit last week. We're not saved by our good works, but we're absolutely saved to do good works. There's an author, his name is Brennan Manning. Anybody familiar with Brennan Manning? He's written quite a bit. He has a quote that's spot on for this. This is what he says. He says, the single greatest cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips, then walk out the door and deny him by their lifestyle. That is what an unbelieving world finds unbelievable. That's amazing, isn't it? When you think about it, when we walk in here and we say, I'm a follower of Jesus, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, the world has a right to have a certain set of expectations about us. And one of those things is that we will do good things in this world. We will make our community a better place. We will be good neighbors. We will be responsible citizens. We will be good parents. We will handle our finances with responsibility. We will care well for our bodies. We will be good husbands. We will be good wives. We will worship God. I mean, they have us right to expect those kinds of things. Brennan Manning says, listen, one of the reasons that the world is so skeptical about the church is because so many of us don't do that. St. Peter followed that up and he said this. He said, be careful to live properly among your unbelieving neighbors. Then even if they accuse you of doing wrong, they will see your, what is it? Honorable behavior. They will see the way you live your life, and they will give honor to God when He judges the world. Peter says, live so well that people around you, even if they don't like you, will have to say, but you know they do some pretty good stuff. Now, all around the church this morning, when you walked in, you saw these tables with various people, happy, smiling, sunshiny people, standing around. And these are people who represent different organizations where you can sign up to do good work. Last week we talked about a little bit, Christians have a responsibility to do good things in our world. And these are the number of the people that we talked about last week. And I would encourage you, on your way out, to stop and meet some of the people that are here this morning. I'll just tell you a short list of who we have here. We've got Josh Langley and Positive Friday on the back. He's the big man with the pug t-shirt on, all right? Can't miss him on the way out. Stop and talk to him about what they're doing. They're actually in the process of raising funds to support a family who desperately needs some help this Christmas. Now, we're not going to say the name of the family because we want to protect the honor and the dignity of the family, but as a church, we want to come together and help this family who genuinely needs the help of a body of Christians. Josh has taken it on. His organization, Positive Friday, is going to be bringing Christmas to this family. I'd encourage you to talk to Josh, be a part of that. We've also got Mitchell Medical Missions on the way out. Incredible work every year, January and June. They take a trip over to Jamaica and serve the underprivileged. They do incredible work. I'd encourage you to talk to Ruth Ann and her family on the way out. If you can't be a part of the missions trip, you can help to send some supplies, be a good thing. We've got Godspeak in the very back. Fran Henson leading Godspeak. It's an opportunity for women to come together and meet one another and grow together. In the back, we've got Family 180 where they're serving kids. And we've got Zumba where the ladies are coming together and doing exercise so they can profit and serve Evanport Elementary. There is a group here this morning that I want to just give just a moment to, and it's a group, Salvation Army. Undoubtedly, you've seen Salvation Army, you've heard about them. I have a friend here, Laura Holiday, and so Laura, I want to invite you to come on up. I'm going to give you this mic right here, and Laura's going to take like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, to just tell us a little bit about what Salvation Army is doing in the world. And isn't it interesting that it's called the Salvation Army? It has everything to do with the way Christians function in this world. All right, Laura, you want to take this mic right over here?
Oh, I can't see you. I'm out there. Hey, I'm Laura Holiday, and everybody knows our family is led by Papa Bud and Granny Barb. Wait, Papa Bud and Granny Barb. I'm not going to look at them while I tell this next story because I'll start to cry. And everybody knows Sissy, right? Your decorator and your party planner at the church. But I'm Laura Holiday, and I'm blessed to be part of a family, now part of Church 180's family as well, and the Peterson family. And thank you for letting me talk a little bit about the Salvation Army. You were just talking about that family, and it reminded me of a story of our family. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, Papa Bud was disabled in an accident at work, and we were waiting for a check to come in for disability, and we needed help desperately. And I remember one of my earliest childhood memories, I think I was about 5, right? 5. I can literally see on this hillside in West Virginia in the snow an army of people walking up the hill. We lived in this cinder block house heated by a wood stove. We were really struggling, and there were 5 of us. And I remember seeing this army of people walking up that hill with 2 trucks full of stuff. And what I didn't know at that time was that the word was put out in church that the Higginbothams needed help. And I think about that as a child of how impactful that was to me. That I walked down the steps of the house, and in the kitchen was all this bounty of food and folks smiling at us, and toys, and just this plentiful, just Christmas was happening. And I just couldn't believe what would possess people to come and do this for us. But it was the church. Someone in church had gotten word that we needed help and our money had not come in and that we were hungry. And there was going to be no Christmas. And so I never forgot that. I still remember how good that felt. And that was Christmas to me. So I think that when you're blessed to be a blessing. And one of the ways that I've always been taught to do that is be the hands and feet of Jesus. And so to pay that forward, I have been volunteering at the Salvation Army now about 20 years. I've been on their board about 15 years here locally. And when you hear this bell, Missy's my bell girl. When you hear this bell, I know you're probably hurried into Walmart or wherever you're going, Harris Teeter, and that might even get a little bit annoying sometimes. But the reason we ring that bell is because all throughout the year, this bell rings. So please keep that in mind when you hear those bells and you see the kettles, because I just brought today a report from what we did last month here locally. If you wonder where that money, that change, that penny, that dime, that nickel, all that goes to 119 Charlotte Avenue. It doesn't go outside of this community. And we count every cent and we put it in the bank so that we're able to help others throughout the year. Last month we helped 284 families, just last month, October. We provided 145 people with a shower. We have showers there where the homeless come in and take showers. We have a warming center that just opened 2 nights ago. It's gotten cold, so folks, when they don't have places in the shelters that we have about 7 main shelters in and around York County. And when they're full, where do people go? The woods. So about 10 years ago, actually, we started what we call warming centers, and they're full already. We just opened them this past week. It's hard to imagine, isn't it, that there's already about 25 men and already about 14 women and children crowding into these warming centers because they've been in cars. They're just hidden and invisible to us, but we see them now when they come in when it's cold. So that's another mission that we've just done. This month, we will help 274 kids with our Angel Tree program, 150 seniors with our Senior Angels. It takes an army of folks to help at Christmas time. I call this work sort of the Super Bowl of the Salvation Army in December because they have so many programs going on, and we do need help. So what I brought is some stockings, and they have cards in them, and they have the websites where you can sign up to help or adopt or donate or ring the bell. It's all done by volunteers, and it does take an army of people. So I think back to the army of people that did hold us in such high regard as a family in our church that they were willing to come. And I think what Mom told me was that one of the ministers at the church said if we had been any more loved in that church, they would have had to bring another truck. And even the janitor, I think one of the things my mom told me was that the janitor at the church was cleaning up, and he didn't get to put his money in the pot to bring it to us. So later that night, he had his daughter drive him over so he could give us $20 to buy food. So it's just really, I think about how blessed we are as a church that we can be the hands and feet of Jesus. And I just thank you and really appreciate this church, because this is a church that walks the walk. I've seen it. I see folks out in the community. I see lots of volunteers doing things at Pilgrim's Inn, and I hear about all the good work that you're doing, and I'm just proud that this is part of my family too. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Lord. So this is one way to be rich in our relationship with God, serving others, doing good in the community. There's all kinds of opportunities. If you don't know how to get started, you should not leave the building this morning until you've figured out what you're going to do by talking with one of these groups, and I would encourage you strongly to do that. Let me give you a final component in being rich in your relationship with God, and that is this: being rich in relationships. As Christians, the truth is, it is very difficult to be a Christian alone. And the truth is, we just need one another. And there's another part of this. It's very difficult to prove to the world that your faith is legitimate if you're doing life alone. Here's why. Jesus said this. He was talking to some of his close friends, his disciples, and he said this. He said, I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will, say it, prove to the world that you're my disciples. Your love for the way you love one another, the way that you care for one another. There's no way in the world that community looked at what happened with Jack and Barb's family and said, they couldn't dismiss that incredible act of love because they loved one another, they cared for one another. And the Bible says, Jesus said, that's how you will prove to the world that you're mine, that you're my people. Love for one another will prove that you're my disciples. So there they are. Faith, doing good in our community for one another, and loving one another. These are three ways that we as followers of Jesus can be rich in our relationship with God. Now what I want to do is I want to just take just a minute and do a little bit of a family talk. I think here at our church, we do good at seeing people come through the door, right? So almost every Sunday, Laura, I think it's interesting, you wouldn't know this, but when you say, you all know Jack and Barb, the truth is, no, not everybody knows Jack and Barb. Not everybody knows Kim. A lot of people do, not everybody does. Because we actually do pretty good at seeing new people come to our church. Almost every Sunday there's a new face. And so if you're new here this Sunday, we thank you for being a part of it. We love our church. We're glad you're here. And we'd love for you to be a part of our church. What we haven't done a great job at doing is creating a place where people stay and engage. A couple reasons for that is, one, some people leave because we're just not the church for them, right? So if you went into McDonald's and said, man, I could use a bloomin' onion today and a filet mignon, what are they going to say to you? Dude, we're McDonald's, right? You're not getting a bloomin' onion or a filet mignon here. Go to Outback, right? And if you went into Outback and said, man, I could go for a cheap cheeseburger and a nasty set of greasy fries, and you're like, dude, go to McDonald's, right? And so the truth is, there are going to be some people that walk into our church and they're going to see us, and they're going to hear us, and they're going to smell us, and they're going to experience us, and they're going to be like, no, just not for me, right? There have been some people that have not liked the fact that we partnered with Evanport Elementary as a public school, right? And so they just said, and we've had good interactions, we've loved them, they've loved us, but they just said, this isn't for us. And that's okay. Because the truth is, we're not going to change. There are just some things we're not going to change. We're not going to stop partnering with Evanport Elementary. And so they just said we can't be a part of that. It's fine. It's fine. We've had some people that wanted more teaching on prophecy on Sunday morning. I'm just not going to teach on prophecy a lot on Sunday morning. And so for them, they're like, this isn't the church for us. That's fine. I love them. They love us. We have good interactions, but we're just not the place for them. We've had some people that said, hey, we want things to be a little more traditional. And you know what? We're just not going to be more traditional. And it's fine. We're just not the place for them. There's no animosity, no hard feelings. So they decided we're not the church for them, so they went somewhere else. But that's not the case for everybody. Some people actually come in here and say, I kind of like the church, but I haven't been able to get plugged in. I haven't been able to, it's a lot. Hey, can I get is it hard just sometimes to roll out of bed on Sunday morning and go to church? Can I get a witness? Amen. All right. So the other day, Sherry, this is a couple months ago, Sherry made a great point to me. If you don't know who Sherry is, we often call her the lovely and talented Mrs. Peterson, right? She made a great point. She said, would you take your family to a seminar every Sunday morning? You had to drag your butts out of bed, get all the kids ready, go to a seminar. Where the seminar, would you do that if you could get the same information in your car on Monday on the way to work? Would you do that? No. I'm like, of course not. Here's what I do. On Sunday, I'd sleep in, right? I'd enjoy the day. I'd pedal around my garage, If I could get the same information in my car on the way to work. Now, here's what I realized. Church, if we're just being honest, church can be like that. You can get the same information in your car on the way to work on Monday. You can hear any kind of here's the cool thing about personalizing your church experience. If you don't like the preacher, you'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to pick another preacher. I'm going to pick Charles Stanley today because I like what he's talking about better than what Paul talked about. Or you could say, I like Stephen Furtick better, so I'm going to pick him because I like what he's preaching about better today. Or I'm going to pick, T.D. Jakes because I like how he thunders, right? I just like it. So you can pick whoever you want on the car on Monday. You can personalize your experience, right? The other thing about that is you can pick your songs in the car on the way to work on Monday, can't you? So let's just say Casey picks a song that you don't know. You're like, I don't like that song. I feel like Bill Gaither today. Or I feel like Hillsong. Or I feel like, and so you can kind of pick your teaching and you can pick your songs and kind of personalize your own little worship experience. But what I realize about the church is if we're not careful, Sundays can become story hour with Pastor Paul. Where we just come, we hear a nice little teach, and we sing a couple little songs, and we go home. I want to tell you something, that's not what church is supposed to be. And honestly, that's hardly worth getting up for. It's hardly worth it to get up out of bed and give another day to go to church, to do something else. You're already busy. Can I get a witness? Amen. We're all busy. It would be nice to have a day off. And if the only reason you're coming to church is to hear a little ditty and to sing a couple tunes, it's really not all that worth it. And it won't last for long. Now, some of you in this room won't stay. Some of you won't stay because this is not the church for you. You're going to realize it sooner or later, like this just isn't the place for me. I hate that, but it's just true. And some of you, you'd like to stay, but you're not. I mean, at some point you're like, it's not worth it because I can hear the same thing on Monday in my car. I can pick my own songs in the car on the way to work on Monday because I'm a master of efficiency, right? Now, what I'm going to tell you this is the only way you're going to find value in your church, the only way going to church actually becomes something that you look forward to doing is if you have something to do and someone to see. Can you say that with me? Something to do and someone to see. Listen, if all you do every Sunday morning is just squeak in the last minute and rush out the very moment the last amen is said, the effort won't be worth it. I mean, I do okay as a teacher. Sometimes I do really good. Other times I just want to die up here and not see any of you after church. It just happens, right? But I do okay. But the truth is, if that's all you're coming for, it's just not going to be worth it to roll out of bed because you can hear it on Monday morning, church180.tv. But if you will make an effort to do something, if you will make an effort to know someone, you will find that church becomes more than a couple of songs and a nice little sermon. Amen. It will become an essential tool in a rich life. You will make connections with people in this room that will actually help you grow in your faith. You will make connections in this room with people who will actually help you to do good in this world. You will make connections in this room that could potentially change the direction of your life forever. But I promise you, if all you do is squeak in last minute and rush out first minute, you're going to miss all of this incredible thing that God has created called the church, which can actually help us grow spiritually. I would just say, as you're considering this, consider Josh and Positive Friday. Consider Aislinn and Zumba. Consider Ruth Ann Mitchell and her husband Troy with the Mitchell Medical Missions. Consider Fran Henson and God's group of ladies that meets monthly to develop relationships and pray for our community. Consider Laura Holiday and Salvation Army. Consider Pat Call and Lauren George and Family 180 Volunteer. These are all good people, leading good groups, doing good in the church, doing good in the community, and growing in the relationships with one another and with God. I really, really just urge every single one of you and myself and my family as well to see church as more than just an hour on Sunday morning that you got to drag yourself out of bed for, but to see it as a community in which we make connections and we discover God together that will make us better, that will impact our community in a significant way, because that's what the church is really supposed to be. So we're just going to take just a couple of moments here, and I'm going to have the band start moving up, and I just want to kind of just have a conversation with you. And I like sometimes in these moments to have us close our eyes, because that gives you a little bit of privacy, and the person next to you isn't staring at you and you're not staring at them. And so if you would just honor the person next to you and just close your eyes for just a minute, and let me just talk to you. I think, honestly, of everything we've talked about this morning, the most important decision you can make is to be rich in faith. If you are in this room this morning and you have not made a connection with God, that is the most important thing you can do. Jesus came into this world, he reached out to us, and he still says to us, I am alive, and I want to be the leader of your life. I want to love you. I want to give you wisdom. I want to give you courage. I want to help you rethink life so that you can live it, a true life. If you haven't made that decision this morning, that's the place to start. So I just want to say to you this morning, with our eyes closed, I'm just going to ask you this morning, if you're ready to make that decision, would you raise your hand? And I want to see you, and I want to pray with you. If you're ready this morning to say, I'm going to trust God with my life, I want to be rich in faith, would you just put your hand up this morning? I want to see that and acknowledge that. I see that. Father, you see those hands in the air. You see those hands. These are men, these are women who are saying this morning, I'm going to recommit, I'm going to commit my life to Jesus. I believe in you. I open up my life to you. Please come in. Lead my life. I want to be rich in faith. I want to listen to you. I want to do the things you say, God. Maybe some of you in this morning, you say, you know, I am a believer, but I've not been actively doing good works. And you say this morning, I want to put my hand up and just say, today I'm going to make a decision to be rich in good works. And maybe you sign up with one of the groups that are here this morning. Maybe you don't do that. Maybe you do something on your own. But the truth is, if you're a follower of Jesus, we're doing good in this world. You say this morning, I want to be rich in good works. Would you just put your hand up and I want to see you? Jesus, you see our hands this morning. We are your people. We are your sons, your daughters. We're called to be a light in this world and do good things, to make it a better place. I pray, God, this morning that you would help us to be rich in good works. And finally, I would just say, maybe this morning you've been a Christian and yet you've just not plugged in. You've not been making healthy connections. You've been one of those people that just show up on church on Sunday morning and run out. And maybe that's what your life. Maybe that's just what you can do now. I'm just telling you, you're missing an essential tool in a rich life. Maybe this morning you want to say, you know, I want to make space in my busy life for relationships. And a great place to start is church. And so I want actually this morning, I want to just raise my hand and say, I'm going to begin making space for friendships that will help me grow my faith. If that's you, raise your hand. Father, I thank you this morning for those hands, and I just pray this morning in the name of Jesus, God, that you will make us a church that's rich in faith, that's rich in good works, that's rich in relationships. And God, I know this morning these are big commitments. They're going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take energy. But big life change requires big commitments. Would you help us to do that, Father? To make those commitments and then to honor them and keep them and move out aggressively. Believing with big faith, doing good works, being rich in relationships. This is our prayer so that we can together experience the true life that Jesus talked about. This is our prayer, Father. Please hear our song as we sing to you. We know you don't ever fail us. You're always available to us. This is our hope in the name of Jesus. Amen.